good news can often get overlooked or buried by the negative in our everyday lives. So let's change that. I'm Adrianna.
And I'm Wyatt.
We're just two ordinary people without any special qualifications or anything, trying to navigate life. We invite you to join us as we share wholesome stories, news articles of hope, and ideas about how we can all make the world just a little bit brighter. We are uplifting positive stories. Hey everybody, I'm Adrianna, and this is my husband, Wyatt.
Hello.
Our goal for this podcast is we're going to search the internet for positive stories, positive news articles, anything that we might not normally see on our socials when we're scrolling or that you might not hear about because they're just not the stuff that's circulating. Unfortunately, a lot of stories of drama or conspiracy or things like that of that nature tend to be the things that are shared and commented on, and so the algorithm pushes them. So our hope is with this podcast to shed some light on the topics that we might not hear a lot about, those positive things that are in our everyday, but we just might not notice them, just to give a little bit more of a platform for those positive stories.
Mm-hmm. The good news is out there. We just have to look for it a little bit.
Exactly. There's so much good news out there. It's just a matter of being able to find them. So we're going to start off this episode with a subreddit called Random Acts of Kindness. I found a story on there that I thought was pretty amazing, and I thought it'd be worth sharing.
I'm excited. You've been talking about these for a bit leading up to this first recording.
Yeah.
I haven't been allowed to hear them yet, so.
There's so many cool stories on here. I mean, I've spent hours sifting through them, and there's just so many awesome instances of just people being just angels to other people. It's so cool. So to start off, I've got a story from, like I said, the Random Acts of Kindness subreddit entitled, Son's Most Important Possession Was Stolen, New Community Rallies Behind Him.
Okay.
So here's the story that someone posted. My son is 4 years old. He is autistic, has general weaknesses, and is medically complicated. He also unfortunately suffered medical trauma at the ages of 2 and 2.5. He was badly mistreated by a doctor and then again by a nurse who were unbelievably ignorant of autistic children in general. As a result, he can't even see someone in scrubs without a panic attack. We found a perfect wagon for him. It had a canopy, it was collapsible, it had 5-point harnesses, a little table that went inside, and lots of storage. It also had a stroller push option instead of just pulling it, which is perfect for my own disabilities. It became his mobile safe space, and he couldn't cope without it. We lost everything in an apartment fire. The wagon was outside and was one of the only things we could salvage. We took the money we got and moved across the country to seek better medical systems for myself and my son. Well, wouldn't you know it, within a month, someone stole it. A $400 wagon we used as a medical aid for my disabled child. I was devastated. I felt like a failure, and it was my fault we didn't put it in the house. My son couldn't see his doctors or his therapists. He couldn't even go to the playground because there was a nurse who was often there with her children and she would be in scrubs. My son was essentially trapped in his home, too afraid to leave. I went onto an app that the community seemed to use a lot, and I put out a plea. I did not care who took it. I wouldn't confront anyone at all. Please just bring my son his wagon back. He can't function or cope in the world without it yet. And as expected, it wasn't returned. What I didn't expect, though, was that I would begin getting messages asking that I set up a GoFundMe. Literally dozens of complete strangers came and offered that they could help to save up. I made that GoFundMe, and in less than 24 hours, we have half of what we needed for the wagon. The morning after that, I woke up to find one individual had anonymously donated all of the second half. We had what we needed less than a week after my son's wagon was stolen, and we had another on the way. 10 days after I made the GoFundMe, he had his wagon back. Not a single appointment missed. I can never express how much it means to me that so many people came together and helped my little boy. We still don't have much, we're still trying to recover, but I feel so much hope for the world that my son is growing up in every time I look at that wagon.
That's cute. Was that all just from people in the neighborhood, or?
Yeah, so this woman basically, it sounds like they had just moved in not long ago, like a month before, I think she said, and a bunch of strangers reached out to her when she put out this post on a community website, kind of like, I'm assuming like a Nextdoor kind of thing. I know there's like Facebook pages for community neighborhood stuff, but she put out a post basically just saying that their wagon had been stolen, and someone, if you stole it, just come forward. And she wouldn't be mad. She just wanted the wagon back. And they were like, set up a GoFundMe. And literally within a day, it sounds like they had all the money, $400, which is a lot from a bunch of strangers that they had never met before, for this neighborhood to come together and help this little boy out. That's pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah, it's just cool to see a community coming together and stuff, especially like for a complete stranger, you know, like what a good way to be welcomed to a community, you know?
Right, exactly. Especially, you know, given their circumstances, just to know that they have that support system is just amazing. But yeah, I feel like this story is just a really good example of asking for help when you need it and not being afraid to come forward and put out that call for help, because had she not made that post to begin with, they probably wouldn't have gotten the funds, obviously. And like the story would have been very different. But because they put out that call for help, she was able to then have the support of that community. And I think that's something that we all kind of struggle with, is being willing to put yourself out there and just be like, hey, I'm in a tough spot and I need help.
Mm-hmm. I feel like our pride gets in the way of that a lot. You know, it's like the old cliche, like, oh, just asking for directions, you know, like, I'm not going to ask for directions. I know my way around here. It kind of that, I feel like, applies to a lot of areas of our lives, you know, we're like, I can handle it on my own, I can handle it on my own. But like, it's amazing how people can like step up and surprise you if you let them.
Right.
Like, give
and
them
I think
a chance.
most people want to. I feel like if given the chance, a lot of people want to be able to step up and help. And so I feel like it's really hard to ask for help in the moment. I think we're also worried about inconveniencing other people. But at the end of the day, if someone were to come up to you and ask for help, I feel like most people would agree that we'd very happily step up and help, especially with small things, you know, in everyday life, like trying to reach something on a shelf at the grocery store, or I don't know, little things like that. I feel like most people would prefer to be asked to help, because it makes your day a little bit brighter knowing that you were able to help someone out with something that they needed in the moment. So
I mean, you don't even necessarily need to like, it's great, you know, if someone does ask you for help, you know, then it's very clear, but like even just like showing that you need help without necessarily having to ask for it.
right.
You know, like say like, you know, in Minnesota when the winter strikes and our windshields ice over and everything, you'll see it a lot. Someone like struggling like to scrape off the ice off their car. You got yours done a little earlier and you feel a sudden urge of empathy and you walk over and then you just help them finish scraping off quick. You know, it's a little thing, but like, and they don't have to ask you to do that. You can just go and do that quick. I feel like I see that a lot in our community when winter strikes.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's one of
Granted,
those
it's a
things.
smaller scale. I wasn't any monetary involvement for that, but
Exactly. And, you know, it's just everyday stuff that we all deal with. Another story that kind of resonated with me when I read this story that I have from my own personal life experience. When I worked at a restaurant, there was a little cubby area where people would put their wallets, their purses, their jackets, anything like that. And there was obviously no locker system or anything like that. There was a guy working there that was probably early 20s. He went through and he went through his shift. I think he had been working a double that day. He had money for rent, his cash, in his wallet and had left it in the cubby, and found out that it had been stolen while he was working, which was like $700.
oof.
I mean, a lot of it was tips, I'm assuming, because we always got a lot of cash tips. And so that was his rent money. He didn't know what he was going to do to pay his rent, and he didn't like ask for help from anyone, but he voiced to one of his fellow coworkers that had happened, that he'd lost $700. He felt really stupid for leaving his wallet in the cubby. And we all felt really, really bad for him. Because, I mean, obviously that's unfortunate that happened. And, you know, we would probably feel the same way about leaving money in there and then it getting stolen and thinking, oh, that was on me. It's my own fault that happened. But so the next day, a bunch of our coworkers came in and they started talking with everybody, and they had heard what happened, and it kind of spread throughout the restaurant that this had happened. Obviously, we tried to get the money back from the person that stole it by putting out a call like, hey, you won't get into trouble, just please bring back the money, because obviously this is really important that he needs this for his rent. And no one ended up stepping forward, but because this went around so much, coworkers started pitching in to like a fund to raise that $700 for him to get back his money. And so people put their tip money into a jar and then gave it to him at the end of the day. And between all of the servers, the bussers, everyone had raised $700. And so this guy got his rent money back, which was pretty amazing. I mean, a lot of us didn't have a ton of money and stuff, but to see everybody band together and do that, he didn't even have to ask for the help, but everyone knew that there was an issue, that knew the problem had happened. And he had, you know, told them like, hey, I was I feel stupid. I put my thing there and this happened to me. And then they all rallied around him and got him his money back. It was just really a really cool story that really resonated with me a lot.
And it's cool to also hear there wasn't much, at least it doesn't sound like there was much like victim shaming there, where he was made to feel bad. Like, oh, it's your fault that you left it there. I mean, why should you have to like, I don't feel like that's on him to have his stuff stolen. You know, it's not like he was waving saying, please steal from me. Like,
right, exactly.
And so,
of course, we all want to try to think ahead about what could happen, you know, and account for those things. And like, you know, for example, like in the story we just read from Reddit about this lady and how she felt responsible because she had left the wagon outside, you know, but at the end of the day, you hope people will do the right thing and you hope people aren't just gonna, you know, steal your stuff.
Yeah, but so it's cool that they didn't like make him feel worse, take a bad situation, make him feel even worse about it. How do you make somebody feel bad about getting stolen from, being made to feel bad for getting stolen from?
Right.
And again, I feel like that kind of speaks to the theme right now is like, you don't have to ask for help necessarily, but just let people know that you're struggling.
Right.
That something happened to you, you know? And
because
like,
people can't help you unless you make that aware. Make them aware of that.
and even if nobody helped you, at least if you tell somebody what happened, like at least you're like venting it, you know, and like getting it out there, you know, for your mental health, you know, to talk through things. But then also people might surprise you with things like this.
Right, exactly. And that just brings up another thing too. What's so cool about this story is it's an example of something bad happens, but then something so much greater comes out of it. You know, there was an individual that stole their wagon, probably, you know, it seems. But at the end of the day, had that not happened, this lady wouldn't have been able to see that overwhelming community support that came forward to help her. And just like, again, with my story that I had about the guy at the restaurant, had that not happened to him, he might not have formed that bond with the fellow coworkers that they had, you know, from that experience of them all rallying around him and thinking to himself, wow, these people cared enough about me as a person to help me out in a tough situation. And so sometimes when these bad things happen, it's just an example of overwhelming good that can come from something like that.
Especially in a work scenario like that, where you feel like, you know, people just show up to work just to maybe earn a quick buck and get out, you know, like to actually see that they do care about you and stuff.
Exactly. It's so important. It's our usually 40-hour-a-week job, you know, it takes up a lot of our time. And so to know that you have that community around you is so, so important. So kind of carrying on to that theme of asking for help when you need it, or just simply saying that there is an issue, I have a news article that I found. It is from Reuters, and it's entitled, "Adopt a Penguin Egg. Easter Campaign Helps Endangered African Birds." All right. So basically, yeah, it's an interesting story. So basically, a South African conservation group put out a call to adopt a penguin egg for Easter because they need funding to be able to help an endangered species of African penguins. I guess African penguins are extremely endangered. They have less than 10,000 breeding pairs this year, which is, to put it in perspective, only 1% is left of the 1 million that were in existence a century earlier. So yeah, a century earlier there was 1 million and now there's only 10,000. The article says that at this current trajectory, which is an 8% loss every year, we're looking at extinction by 2035.
Oh, wow.
Which is crazy. So only 11 years. So, and apparently it's stuff like commercial fishing, noise and pollution from shipping routes, stuff like that has really had a negative impact on the species. So this group of conservation people decided that it would be a cool idea to put out a call where you could pitch in some money and then adopt a penguin egg and have these penguins be able to be raised from egg to, you know, however long, so that they can reach their way to maturity, so that they can breed them again and have the species grow. Yeah.
And how much were they able to raise?
So they just did this. I mean, this was as of 5 days ago. So because of Easter, this article was posted on March 29th. So I haven't found an update yet about how it went. I'm going to search and see how it went once we get more numbers from that. Hopefully it goes well. But I just think it's such a cool idea to put that call out there and to tie it to Easter and, you know, the Easter egg, and kind of put out a fun way to help. Mm-hmm.
It's always nice when they come up with like creative, fun ideas, you know, that drive community engagement. And again, like what's important with articles like these is being aware that there is an issue.
Right. I had no idea that African penguins were on the endangered species list, and especially that they were that endangered to the point where they only have about 11 years left till potential extinction. Yeah, it's just crazy.
So I'm hopeful that will do well. I feel like people tend to respond well to animals and such.
Right. I feel like there's a lot of examples out there of, like adopt a dolphin or things like that they have out there. So it's cool to see, yeah, like you said, just tying it to the Easter holiday and making it a fun way to, say, hey, I adopted a penguin egg for Easter this year. I don't know. It's just a cool idea. Getting creative, but also being open with everybody about the problem that exists.
The only negative I can find in that is that I don't actually get to receive a penguin.
I know. I feel like that would probably be a little counterproductive to what they're trying to do, which is to get the penguins out in the wild. But yeah. And I feel like you said, a lot of these types of things I feel like do really, really well. Back in, I want to say it was 2018. Back in 2018, we attended a local animal shelter's banquet that they were hosting, and they were trying to raise money for something called a catio, which is like a little outdoor pen for cats, so that while the animals are there at the animal shelter,
to help increase enrichment.
Increasing enrichment, not just letting them be in a little room for the whole time that they're there until they're adopted. And it also helps too when people are coming through and they're walking around looking at the animals to see them having fun and like running around rather than just sitting in a room. So they were raising money for this catio, and literally within, I want to say it was 5 minutes, they raised $10,000 towards this catio, I think it was. Which was just amazing to see the amount of people that were willing to pitch in money. They did like a live auction kind of type thing where people would raise up their thing saying how much they were going to donate to the cause. And it was amazing that they literally raised $10,000 in 5 minutes. So
yeah, I don't remember what the exact dollar amount was, but they definitely hit their goal within that first 5 minutes.
It was incredible. And so it's just cool to see that when people have a cause that they can get behind, a lot of times they will pitch in droves. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I feel like this was a fun first podcast episode. Thank you so much for joining me as always, Wyatt.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear the rest of the stories that you've been teasing me about, that you found a lot of good positive stories out there. So I'm excited to hear more.
Yeah, I'm very excited for our next podcast episode because we're going to be talking about one of the articles I found is about AI and how it is advancing in a way that can help people. I know we hear a lot of negative stories about the possible futures of AI and
positive AI story.
I know. So this one is going to be really exciting. I'm excited to share it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we hope to see you here next time.